and welcome to Morning Brew here on Labour Social. It is Monday the 3rd of April 2023, and this morning I'm going to be talking about immigration, specifically refugees, people coming over here in boats and why they're coming over and what our absolutely disgusting, tyrannical, evil government is doing about it. Well, let's kick off with the statement that, first of all, we signed up to the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights in the 1940s, and Article 14 said that everyone on the planet can claim asylum anywhere on the planet. Right? Anywhere. You can go anywhere. You don't have to go to the first country that you get to. And that was spelt out in the Refugee Convention of the United Nations in 1951. We were not just signatories to this convention. We helped write it. We effectively foisted it on the rest of the world, perhaps out of our guilt at not taking many Jews in the lead up to World War II. That decision meant that we had things like the Kindertransport, when children were separated from their parents and their parents were led off to be slaughtered. And those children came to the UK to be raised by other families. Another stolen generation, if you like, in the UK, because we didn't want to let Jews into our country. And now, 70, 80 years on, we're in the same situation in which people are fleeing persecution from wars that we helped start most of the time. By we, I mean people in Europe. White people, so to speak, helped cause around the world. The poverty that grinds in Africa is because of the West, is because of us. We did that. We not only enslaved the people of Africa for many, many years. I mean, you think about the Holocaust, that took place over the course of 5 or 6 years. Yeah. Slavery went on for over 200 years. International slavery, 200 years of genocide. And that's what it was. It was genocide. The cargo ships were taken out from West Africa to the South America, to the Caribbean, to North America. And they were expected to lose half their cargo. They're insured to lose half of their cargo. Cargo being actual humans on board. And then, not content with, slavery, we had the scramble for Africa in 1885, which led to the most horrific crimes against humanity imaginable. Look at what Belgium did in the Congo. King Leopold II, one of the most evil men who ever lived. Have a look at what Britain did in places like Nigeria, where we went and we sacked palaces. We just trashed the place, stole the Benin bronzes, put them in our museums. It's not a history to look back on with fondness. And then, sorry, we haven't finished yet. We decolonized overnight, practically, in a lot of places. Some places, there was a long, meticulous handover process, and nobody died, like Singapore. Other places, like India, oh my God, 1 million people died. Why? Because a transition period, which should have taken years, was done in 5 months. Because we just wanted out. We just wanted out. And this is what we're doing again now. We're seeing people in other countries as just our property, our right to do with what we want. And when these people flee the countries that are crumbling, that are failing because of what we've done in the past, because don't forget, it's not just the uncoupling from being a colonial power. It's also the fact that we haven't really left in a lot of these places. We're still taking raw materials out the ground in Africa. Massively. Look at the Niger Delta in Nigeria. Again, what we're doing now. Shell, BP, Exxon. What are they doing? Oh, they're they're taking all of this oil. They're giving a nice little backhander to the government so that they can do that. And they've got these oil pipelines that leak to hell. So if you are a fisherman or a fisher in the Niger Delta, you've got no fish left. You've still been killed by the oil leaks. But I digress. And then you got places like South Sudan, where we have refugees coming from South Sudan. What happened in South Sudan? The same thing that happened in a lot of African countries, which was we looked at an area on a map and we went, oh, wow, they've got a Christian north and a Muslim south, or a Muslim north and an animist south. Let's put them all together in one country and call it Tambia or something, right? And leave them to it, because they'll all be fighting each other, which is what happens. Which is why Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire are practically split in two along religious lines. It's why Sudan is now literally split in two along religious lines, with a Muslim north and a Christian animist south. And we did that. We drew those lines. We said at the end when we left in the 50s and 60s, we said, oh, those lines should stay where they are. Do you want some money? Do you want some money to rebuild the countries that we've ruined? Oh, well, that's going to cost you. And that brings us to today. When people are coming, seeking asylum, and the government is not processing their claims, they're letting them build up. They're letting them build up. The government is like a landlord who is not attending to their property in any way, shape or form because they want the tenants out. And that's it. The tenants have no rights. The tenants can't complain. The government are locking women and children up, vulnerable women and children, the poorest of the poor. People who don't just have no possessions, they don't have a home. They don't have a home. They don't have a village or a town or a city to call their own. They don't have a network of friends and family around them. They've left. They had to run away almost always because they're in fear of their lives. And what are we doing? What are we doing? We are locking them up endlessly. We're threatening to send people over to Rwanda, which gets the gammons, the red meat of the gammon party. Yeah, the gammon party gets them all excited. Yeah, let's send them to Rwanda. Rwanda, a place where protesters a few years ago, refugees no less, were shot dead by the government. Were shot dead for protesting. 19 of them. Oh, it's a safe place. It's a safe place in the middle of Africa. Yeah. So I'm sure if you are escaping from Uganda, another country where they've made it illegal to be gay, I'm sure if you're escaping that country because you're gay, you're going to love to go back to Rwanda, to be sent back to Rwanda, which is next door to Uganda. I mean, just all of it is just so disgusting, and they're doing it on purpose because they know, and you know, and I know, that in the next election, they're going to say, whoa, look at all these asylum seekers clogging up our hotels, which we put them in. Before there was sheltered accommodation that asylum seekers could be housed in while their claims were being processed. Now, their claims are not being processed and they're being put up in expensive hotels at our expense, so the Tories will have a battle line drawn in the next election. We are paying for the next Tory re-election campaign for the 6th time in a row. Their re-election campaign, we're paying for it. With our tax pounds, and the refugees, the asylum seekers, women and children, over 180 of whom have gone missing from these hotels. They are paying for it with their lives. It's beyond a disgrace. It is beyond human. And when you have people like Priti Patel and Rishi Sunak and this awful Cruella Braverman woman clapping away, we're gonna make it really difficult for immigrants, for asylum seekers. We're gonna make it really difficult for refugees. Ha ha ha! When their parents were immigrants, they came here from somewhere else, and we welcomed them. Not very well, I should add, because the 1970s, it wasn't very particularly nice to be someone of a different ethnic origin living in this country. You weren't treated very well by the right wing. By the right wing. And here we are again. Things have come full circle, and now we have the children of those immigrants on the right kicking the ladder away, blowing up the bridge that their parents helped build. Or that at least their parents utilised to get here. I can't think of anything more selfish and evil than that. And then there's another factor, which is that people are having to take little boats across the channel. Before 2018, there were no boats. There were no boats across the channel. No one was taking a boat across the channel. There was a camp in Calais, which kind of peaked in the mid-2010s. That was on its way out or completely gone. And we had a return agreement with the EU, not just with France. Everyone says, oh, we could return them to France. No, it was with the entire EU. Everyone had a returns agreement that if they wanted to, they could send people back to a country that they were first registered or noticed in the EU. I don't think that's a particularly great way of dealing with refugees. I think it's a bit appalling, actually. I would rather the EU came up with a much better idea, and I've got one, which I'll share with you in a moment. But as it stood, we, as part of the EU, could return refugees, if they did come across on a small boat, to France. So there'd be no point in coming over here in a small boat. And what did we do? We Brexited. So we've got these massive queues down in Dover. Everyone's waiting to get their passport stamped. Oh, we want to leave the EU, so we get stamps in our passport. You know, people who can't be asked getting off their backside and actually going and travelling around the world and collecting lots of stamps like what other people do. Lazy buggers. And yet, they're still complaining. They're like, oh no, these people are coming over in boats. We don't know why. And it's like, no, you literally made it so that was the only way they could get over here, because to claim asylum in the UK, you have to step foot on dry land in the UK. That's what you've got to do to claim asylum in the UK. Which is mad. It's the most idiotic rule that we could possibly come up with, because it costs lives and it costs money. It makes no moral sense, makes no ethical sense, but also it makes no economic sense. It just costs this country a lot of money. They're talking about sending people to Rwanda. I'll tell you a little story. There's a place in the Pacific called Nauru, and it's a little island nation that did really well for itself out of nitrate, out of guano, out of bird poo. And in the 80s, the Nauruans were the richest people per capita in the world. And then the hard-to-reach guano had disappeared. And they were left with some really... the easy-to-reach stuff went, and they were left with the hard-to-reach stuff. And their economy collapsed. And then along comes Australia and says, hey, will you take the people coming over in boats to Australia? And they said, okay, we need the money. And they were housed in a horrific detention camp on Nauru. And people died. People were tortured. It was really evil. It was an evil thing that the Australian government did. And it cost, per person, 1 million Australian dollars per person to send them to Nauru and keep them there. How much do you think it's going to cost to send people to Rwanda? It's in the middle of Africa. Come on, let's have a think about this for a moment. How much? Yeah, it's going to be something comparable, if not more. And they're saying, oh, well, you know, it's costing us X amount to keep people in hotels. Yeah, because they are not processing the claims. Don't believe anything that the Tory spokespeople say. They are lying through their crooked teeth. And so what could we do? What's the alternative? Well, first of all, the EU could have a pool. They could have a system in which if you arrive as a refugee or you apply to be a refugee in the EU, you are allocated a country based on your needs. Okay, so maybe you speak German, maybe you speak French, maybe you speak English, maybe you speak Spanish. Maybe you got family in Liechtenstein. Oh, no, they're not in the EU. Maybe you've got family in Latvia. That's fine. As for the UK, we're not part of the EU anymore. So here's what I would do. This is what I would do if I was in charge of the country and in charge of asylum-seeking policy. A home secretary, if you will. Well, first of all, I would think, hang on, this is crazy. Why are we making it so the only way you can get asylum in this country, if you're not from Ukraine or Hong Kong or perhaps from Afghanistan, but, you know, we seem to have forgotten about a lot of the people in Afghanistan and just left them behind to die. Yeah. So if you're not from Hong Kong and you're not from Afghanistan and you're not from Ukraine, how can you claim asylum in this country at the moment? You've got to step foot on land in this country. That's what you've got to do. Right, let's stop that. Let's stop that right away. And we can do it now. We can do it together. It'll be fun. We can make a website. A website. That's all we need to figure all this out. And the way you access that website is you go to the British Embassy in the country that you're in. Probably won't be your country, but if you've left, so if you've left Uganda, it could be in Nairobi in Kenya. If you've left Eritrea, perhaps it could be in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Okay? You can go to that embassy and you can say, I would like to claim asylum. And they say, okay, here is a number. And they give you a number, and with that number, you can access the website. You can upload your photograph, your ID, your story, what it is. And your claim can be processed within a month in the UK. And if we say no, and say, no, sorry, you don't seem like a genuine refugee to us, then tough luck, they can go and look somewhere else. They haven't had to put their lives on the line, and their children's lives on the line, getting here in a small boat, right? Okay, does that make sense? Because it makes sense to me, right? If we say yes, then we pay for a flight for them to come over. And then, once they're here, and this is the best bit, we have what we call sanctuary cities, sanctuary towns, and sanctuary villages. Basically everywhere that votes for Labour or the Lib Dems or the SNP or Plaid Cymru. With the allowance of the people who live in these areas, we take in refugees. And we can compete with each other. You know, Liverpool can compete with Birmingham. Durham can compete with Leeds to get the qualifications and the employees that they need. Okay? So all the little places in the Cotswolds that continually vote Tory, Chipping Norton and all that lot, they don't get any refugees. So they can't complain about them. If they go on TV and say, oh, there's too many refugees, you'll say there aren't any in your area. There are none in your area. Because we have housed refugees in places that have asked to take refugees, because we are heading towards a population time bomb, which is all these boomers are really old and there's not enough young people to do the jobs that are needed to sustain that older generation. So yeah, fine. If you live in a Tory area, you're less likely to see a doctor. You're less likely to have someone, I don't know, look after you when you've got dementia. You're less likely to be able to get a plumber. Fine. That's fine with me. Do you know what? That's what they want. They don't want to see any foreign faces. They don't want to help anyone. They don't want to love thy neighbour. They just want to be horrible, little, selfish, not nice people. I'm trying not to swear. But the rest of us living in big-hearted cities like Liverpool and Manchester, well, no, we'll take people. We will take them. And we will compete to take them because we're like, oh wow, an architect from Syria. Okay, we'll have an architect from Syria. That sounds great. Bring them over here. And that's how we grow our economy. Because here's the secret of immigration. And I don't know why I have to spell this out. We have a lot of idiots in this country. And we have to spend millions educating them. Literally, probably billions educating idiots. Which is worthless and just a waste of time, because they're not going to do anything with their lives that is going to grow the economy of this country. If we have people coming from other countries, like, I don't know, the EU, like it used to be, you have people who have already been educated in someone else's country. They've already got qualifications in someone else. Some other taxpayers have paid for that. We haven't. Brilliant. Bring it on. That's a great system. Bring them over here. Wink, wink. And they can work for a bit. And you know what? If they want to stay, that's fine. If they want to leave and go somewhere else, that's fine as well. But the fact is, we have a huge crisis at the moment. We've got the crisis, the ticking time bomb, the generational time bomb that is the boomer generation. There's too many of them for the economy to cope. There will be too many of them not working for the economy to cope. The fertility rate in the UK is like 1.4. It needs to be 2.1 to retain the same level of population. We have to bring in people from other places. So why not help the people who are fleeing war and persecution, fleeing from death, which the vast majority of people who come here in small boats are doing. And here's the knock on. You would absolutely 100% eradicate people smuggling gangs with a website. That's all you'll need, a freaking website. That's all it will take. Because who the hell in their right mind would pay thousands of pounds to get in a leaky boat with their children to a country that has either already said that they're not going to be able to get asylum here because they've already applied? You know, we've got photos of them. We've got facial recognition software these days. It's not like they can say, oh, well, I'm someone else now. You can't, the idea of that is like so improbable. Because they're just going, no, we've got your photos. We took them in the embassy when you applied to get your number, so you could. So we would destroy the people smuggling gangs, and the Tory party wouldn't have a leg to stand on, because this is all it's got left now. All it's got left is that asylum seekers. Yeah, we need to stop them. They're stealing everything. And it was honestly terrifying last week or a couple of weeks ago when I was in the pub with Johnny Reynolds and Andrew Gwynn, which you can watch the pubcast of if you like on this channel. And they were after we did the interview, we were sitting with a couple of locals and having a chat, and one of them said the problem is the boat people, and I said, do you really think that they're all the problems we've got in the country at the moment are caused by the poorest people in the world coming here, a few of them on boats, or do you think it's the billionaires? And he said, I think it's the boat people. It's not Elon Musk. It's not Rupert Murdoch. It's not the Barclay brother. It's not Lord Rothermere. No, it's the poorest. It's not the richest people. It's the poorest. It's the poorest. And this is Britain in 2023, under 13 years of Tory rule, where they continually blame everything that's gone wrong, which is everything, on the Labour Party that came before it somehow. The Tories haven't had 13 years to change anything because they've only been in power for 13 freaking years. And all they can think of, all of their imagination is to destroy. Because this is something you need to know about Tories. They don't know how to create. They only know how to destroy. We saw it in the 60s with the railways. We saw it in the 80s with industry and unions. We saw it in the 2010s with our relationship around the world with other countries. And now you're seeing it in the 2020s with the economy. And they're too busy going, look at this distraction over here. Look at these children coming here without permission. Yeah, there is no way of getting permission, mate. We've set it up so there's no way of getting permission before you get in a boat to come over here. If you had a system in which you could get permission, everything would change. Everything would change. And don't think for a moment, oh, yeah, but it'd be too many people. It'd be too many people. I'm like, no, we would decide who can come. And if we decide they can come, we will fly them over here. Do you know why? Because that'll be cheaper. That'll be cheaper than any other way of doing this. It would be cheaper, more ethical, more environmentally friendly, less likely to result in the death of people. And why are we, British taxpayers, paying for the Tories' re-election campaign through putting asylum seekers up in hotels while the Tories will not process their applications? They're just refusing to. Because they know that this is it. This is the end game for the Conservative Party. They know they're going to get wiped out in the next election. They just don't want to be wiped out entirely. So they've got this one thing that they can hold up. In the next election, I guarantee that they will go on and on and on about boat people and trans people like crazy. It'll be all they go on about because it's all they've got left. Brexit has been an unmitigated disaster, as any person who has spent the weekend queuing up trying to leave the country in Dover can attest. I'm sorry I haven't been able to read your messages today. I just little bit of a rant there, but it had to be done because I'm really upset and pissed off with the way the Tories are doing this. And if you know anyone, and I'm sure you do, in your circle of family or friends, where you anyone you know who has fallen for this absolute hogwash about people coming here and stealing our jobs. They're not allowed to work. Asylum seekers are not allowed to work. I mean, what we've put asylum seekers through in the last few years in this country is just abominable. And considering this is the country where, when that child, the little boy, was dead on the beach, that was the front page news in Turkey, dead on the beach in Turkey. And people were clutching their pearls and saying this is awful. And we're doing the same thing. We're doing exactly the same thing. We're making it as dangerous as possible for people to come here and claim asylum. Because let's face it, the selfish Tory voters out there, they don't want to help anyone but themselves. So I have a question for you. Why the hell should we help them? End of. Okay, I'm going to just... let's have a look. I'm just going to set up a chat. Right, okay, that is done. Okay, so in a moment there will be a video going up on Labour Social. It's me talking to Tom Brooks of Durham University. In February, he wrote the most so far comprehensive paper on small boats coming over, and you can listen to him. It's basically a lecture. It is. It's quite academic. It's quite dry, but it's well worth having a look at, and it's called Hard Labour. And that's going to be on this channel momentarily, as soon as this circle stops going around. In the meantime, we're just going to say hello to everyone in the chat there. We've got a lot of David. Hi, David. We've got Freckle Puny saying we also need to consider the actions of Leopold II, who used Congo as a personal playground. I think I mentioned that, but yeah. Graham, did you know in the early 80s, some Tories were in favour of giving £2,000 to non-white Brits to send them back to their countries and parents' countries of origin? No, I didn't, but I do now. I believe there is a limit on the number of refugees the UK can send to Rwanda, whereas no limit on Rwandan deportees coming the other way. Plus, the UK has to pay Rwanda huge fees. Yes, Uncle Henry, you're completely right. There is a limit on how many we can send over there, which is based on what the Rwandan government can take, which is probably going to be a few hundred, if that. Meanwhile, the refugees from the Democratic Republic of Congo and Burundi and Uganda and other places around Rwanda, because it is an unstable part of the world, ladies and gentlemen. I hate to point this out. It's a very unstable part of the world. Yeah, and a lot of people claim asylum in or run to Rwanda for safe haven. And they can be sent over to the UK. Great. I'm sure that's going to be really helpful for people to come from an ex-Belgium colony to the UK. I'm sure that's going to be really good because everyone in DRC obviously speaks English. The Tory song are much humpig on the green. Number 3 says, as usual, the entire system needs to change. Revolutionary radical. Well, yeah, number 3. But the thing is, it's not that big a change. Do you know what I mean? This is something that could just be legislated for. I mean, making a website, that's not a revolution. That's just sensible. That's just like, okay, right. So how do you apply for asylum if you're an African? How do you apply for asylum if you're African and you want to apply for asylum in the UK? You come from any of the 54 countries of Africa. How do you apply for immigration asylum status in the UK? You have to come here. How do you come here? Well, overland, don't you? Because you can't afford you won't be allowed on a flight. And then you've got to pay people smugglers, criminals, thousands of pounds in order to get you into the country. People smugglers, people profiting from the suffering of others, or as I like to call them, conservatives. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Have a look out for Hard Labour, the refugee crisis, in inverted commas, which is, like I say, it's been manufactured by the tyrannical Tory government that we're under at the moment, who are about as popular as syphilis, and they goddamn know it, and they need to get out of office. We're looking at an election in about a year's time. We need to start gearing up for that massively, because the Tory party in the next election can't just be beaten. They can't just be beaten, right? That's not enough, right? The Tory party needs to be destroyed. It needs to no longer be an entity in the United Kingdom. We need to have a tombstone, and on it is written the Tory party and the dates ending in 2024. That's it. End of. We can have the fringe lunatic nuts over at Reform UK and Farage's party. Fine. No one listens to them anyway. But we need to get rid of these people in charge, because they are not good for our economy. They're not good for our morality. They're not good for our country. They're just not good. And we're seeing it time and time again. Every single one of their policies, they don't know how to create. They only know how to destroy. So thanks for watching. I will be back tomorrow morning at 9:30. I'm going to be making more videos, obviously, for your edification online. And I'm going to I agree, of course, but I meant the entire system needs to change. Oh yeah, sorry Richard, yes, you are absolutely right. I'll be making more videos over the next few weeks. Stuff should be going up nearly every day. I've got more interviews lined up, which are quite exciting, over the next couple of weeks with famous people. And also, you've got me waxing lyrical so to speak. But I'll leave you with to go head over to LBC and go and listen to James O'Brien, see what he's got to say. I'm sure he's probably going to be talking about immigration a lot today. And I will return tomorrow as soon as I find my end screen. Oh, there it is. I had to scroll. And I'll be back tomorrow at 9:30, almost precisely, for another round of Morning Brew. And until then, thanks for watching, and hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.